Hello and good afternoon. It's Sunday, the 27th of July, and I thought we would have some ghost stories from my life. Things I have experienced over the years that I can't quite explain, but nevertheless, they have happened to me. And here we are. The first sort of experience I ever had is going back to my childhood and when we lived in a cottage called Bank End. And it was a very sleepy little village in Yorkshire. And it was an old weaver's cottage. Beautiful. It was so gorgeous, set in beautiful gardens. It was very, very old, at least Victorian era, if not earlier. And it had a big front room at the front of the house, and behind it there were two bedrooms, and then another corridor that went down to the kitchen on one side, and then there was a very small bathroom located at the back of the house as well. And when my parents had bought it as a renovation project, and when we moved in, we noticed that there was a darkish stain on one of the white cream walls. It was like an off-white, but it was straight onto plaster. And in those days, they did something called wattle and daub. So it was a very, very old cottage. And just in that corner, there was a stain on the wall, and there was no way that we could get rid of it. And we painted over and over and over it, and it never went away. Also, in the corner of that room, we could not ever get it warm. No matter what temperature we had at the front room out, in that corner, there would never be any heat. And my dad, being is a master joiner, time served apprenticeship, everything, builder, you name it, he can do it. He ended up actually in his life becoming a project manager for massive builds that happened up and down the country. But getting back to the story of the house, and my dad had got the plans and everything, and he was going to build an extension to the house and extend it on its footprint and make it twice the size that it was. And then the plan was to build up and go upstairs and keep the original cottage at the front, but sympathetically put another layer and upstairs on the house. And so the renovations began. And this is when things started to go a bit weird around the house. And my dad, try as he might, every time he rewired in that corner, the wiring would burn out. So in the end up, he decided, right, fine, we're not going to have any plug sockets at all in that corner, right? It just won't, we just won't have it. And we didn't put any plumbing in that corner either, because we tried to put a radiator in and it just, no, the pipes went rusty. It was just weird, right? Completely weird. And whenever anyone came to visit the house, when they came in, and if they were anywhere near there, especially people that were kind of sensitive, but we didn't obviously know about things like that because we were kids, they'd complain of having a really bad headache. And not only did they have a bad headache, but they felt sick and really tired, and they couldn't settle, and the room, it was just too cold for them. and they always left within like an hour tops. That's the most that they could manage. And all this has started when my dad started ripping things apart and rebuilding. And lots of really weird things would happen, like the taps would turn on by themselves in the kitchen, and the same in the bathroom. And sometimes at night you could hear footsteps going down the corridor. Really, really strange, and creaking floorboards. Really weird. Hairbrushes, if you were using a hairbrush in the bedroom, they'd disappear and you'd find them in the front room and you hadn't taken them there. If my mother had a thing for putting decorative plates on the wall, it was a thing back in the 70s and 80s. And every time she tried to get something to hang up on the wall there, it would crack and break and they'd fall on the floor and smash. So she tried to put some pictures up there, some paintings, and the paintings were all burned, all singed around the sides and blistered on the paintwork. So we just didn't bother putting any pictures up in the end there, or anything decorative at all. And as I say, the stain that was on the wall, it never went away. And it was more prominent, deeper and darker in colour when we were going into autumn and right through winter until spring, when it had faded away. It was really very, very strange. We had a cat called Ginger, and Ginger would look into that corner and he'd hiss and he'd growl and he would not go anywhere. And he'd come into the front room and he would walk to the other side of the room and round to go out the front door. He would not walk that way. He never did. And my dad had, I can see it now, a Black & Decker drill, and it just turned itself on for no reason. It wasn't one of those that you plugged into the wall. It was on its own with its own power pack, like the battery would drop out the bottom. And he just put the drill down and it turned itself on, and try as we might, we could not get the thing to switch off. We ended up taking it out of the house and it suddenly stopped, and then trying to get it going again and it didn't want to work. It was really very strange. And there've been times that my mother would be in the kitchen and she'd be doing the washing up and she'd suddenly go, "Huh," and turn round and she'd be looking to see who it was that had walked into the kitchen, but there'd be nobody there. And we've all of us experienced something like that, like we were being watched whilst we were in the house. Very, very strange. And just that things would get moved around the house for no reason whatsoever. As I say, Ginger, our big fluffy orange cat, and I know he's an orange cat, so orange cats tend to do strange things, but no, Ginger, he just growled. He just did not like that corner at all. We ended up getting the local village vicar at our local church to come round and bless the house. And my father had finished doing the renovations, and when he'd finished on the bottom half of the house and we'd got the house blessed by the local vicar, things seemed to calm down. And then, as we were getting ready to take the roof off the house and build up, and we were putting scaffolding around the house in order to be able to do this, and it was a big job my dad took on. It was massive, and we were about 2 years whilst we were getting everything, like the structure went up pretty quickly, and we had the roof put on, and the big giant Velux windows, the biggest ones that you can get. We had 4 of those put in in the top in the roof to give light. And it was absolutely stunning by the time he'd finished. But all the problems started again when we decided to go up and build up. And for 2 years, things were just moving around the house. Wiring was shorting out. And the plumbing was on the fritz. Burn marks were appearing on the wall. And things just kept moving around the house. We had a tank full of fish. And one day we just came in and there was like a green slime laid across the top of the fish tank. And all the fish inside had all died. We just don't understand what had happened. The pump had been working perfectly during the day and what we believed going into the night. But when we got up the next day, the pump wasn't working and the water hadn't been oxygenated. It had like this green film on top and all the fish had died. So we never got any more fish. Really, really strange that happened. And just a sense of feeling as though we were being watched. It was a very, very prickly. You can tell when someone's watching because the hair stand up on the back of your neck. And I'm not joking, that happened to us on more than one occasion. And I would say we'd lived in this house since I was like 6 years old, right up to when we left at 18, when we had to sell the house due to the sort of like economic depression that we went into. So we went into, I wouldn't say it was like the financial collapse that we had in 2008, but I do remember the one in 92, which was quite rough. It was a rough couple of years. And eventually we ended up having to sell the house shortly after that. It would be about 94 that we sold. We ended up selling. We went through hell in 92, and in 94 we couldn't take it any longer and we just had to let the house go. And it was really, really sad. On Boxing Day in 1989, my parents sat us down in the dining room and told myself and my sister that they were going to get divorced and that they couldn't make it work and they'd had enough, and Mum had met someone else, and this is when things started to go rather wrong for my family in a big way. And it immediately, as soon as my parents said that they were getting divorced, there was this big bang in the front room. And the china cabinet, which had all my parents' wedding china in that they'd been given when they got married, just was disintegrated. There was nothing left. Absolutely nothing at all. There wasn't a plate, a saucer, a cup. They'd all just been obliterated. There was dust everywhere. Fine china all over the place. The glass in the cabinet, that had shattered as well. And was it connected to the ghost? Absolutely no idea. But after that, things started to get really, really upsetting in the house. And the cat was growling and angry and just didn't want to know. And then we lost him. He died not so long after that. He died. It was just awful. And we just came home one day and we just found him and he passed away. It was just the saddest thing. And we ended up adopting another cat, and her name was Tiv, and Tiv wouldn't go anywhere near the front room. She just hated the place. She'd go near it. She'd go anywhere else around the house, but she wouldn't go in the front room. And yeah, I can see her now. She's passed away. She's passed on since, and she went. Good grief! I think she went about the year 2000. So it's a while since she'd left us. But she just did not like the front room at all. She wouldn't go anywhere near it. After my mother left the house, things settled down somewhat for a while, and my father met someone else, and obviously she did move in, and then the spirit, whatever it is, started up again, and it would move things around, and she'd be yelling at us saying, we keep moving her things, and it's like, no. And then we explained the situation about the ghost, or what we called him, the cheeky ghost. And my dad was like, well, things have strange occurrences, and she could never get warm in the front room either. I mean, certain parts of it were fine, but that corner, no one could ever get warm. Anyway, in about 92, we went through a miniature financial collapse here in this country, in the United Kingdom. And by 1994, my dad could no longer afford to keep the house. And it was such a shame because it was absolutely stunning. He'd done such a wonderful, wonderful job renovating the house. And on our last night in that house, I say I turned 18 at this point, we had the boxes in the front room. Everything was labelled up and ready to go in the removal van the day after. And the boxes in the front room, when we went down in the morning, and there'd been no noise at all overnight, right? Everyone was asleep. When we got up in the morning, all the boxes had been opened up and things had been taken out and popped around the house. And we had a right job on to get everything together and reseal all the boxes before the removal men came, and managed to pack everything up. And even as we were leaving, the removal men kept saying, blimey, it's cold in that front room of yours. He said, there's a real draft. And we'll start like looking at each other and then just say, oh, you've met him then. Because we think it was an old man, but we're not sure. And whether or not he was happy that we were doing renovations to the house, I don't think he was. As I say, when we did have the house blessed, it did calm down a little bit, but not totally all the time. And he would just move things just for the sake of moving it. And I've often wondered about the people that bought the house after us, if they ever experienced what we experienced while we lived there. I don't know. Very, very strange. Anyway, I hope you've really enjoyed that little ghost story. That's one of many, but I thought I'd just tell you about that one, because why not? It's a Sunday afternoon. It's in July the 27th, 2025. And I truly, truly hope you've enjoyed the ghostly goings on in Fairy Tales Life. And I will be back later with another for you. Mwah! Take care, my darlings. Happy readings and enjoy. And if you like what I do, you can always give me a thumbs up. And if you really like what I do, you can always subscribe, hang around, and see what else we get up to, because it's never boring in Fairy Tales Land in House of Fairy. See you later.